Hello, and welcome to episode 1 of season 2 of Radical Embodiment, the podcast. I'm your host, Emily Wishall, and I am thrilled to get to bring you this first episode for season 2. Season 2 is going to be interviews of 12 people who I deeply respect, have either worked with, followed their work, colleagues of mine in the embodiment, movement, coaching world. And my first interview was with Victoria Kleinsman. Victoria is a food freedom and body love coach who has beaten anorexia, bulimia, binge eating disorder, and domestic abuse. Victoria helps you to make peace with food, become besties with your body, and fall madly in love with yourself. I'm so excited that she's kicking off this interview series. Victoria has so much to offer, and this avenue towards really learning to love our bodies. And she's been in the muck of it, and she's been on the other end of being in love and enjoy with her body. So I hope you enjoy the interview and conversation. I know that I very much enjoyed getting to connect with Victoria deeper in this way. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of season 2 for Radical Embodiment. I'm here with Victoria Kleinsman. And Victoria, I'm so grateful that you're here and your radiant essence, and know that you have so much rich, necessary, needed value to offer, particularly for us women in this world of really learning to love our bodies and come to a place with being able to feel free around food. So I'm looking forward to diving in with you.
Oh, hello, Emily. Yes, and hello to all your beautiful listeners. It's an absolute pleasure, and I'm really excited for this conversation.
Awesome. So I want to start our conversation with asking, because I know a big part of your journey, and I shared in your introduction, is healing and recovering from anorexia, bulimia, and binge eating disorder. And I would love for you to just share a little bit on that and your healing process, and how the more embodied you became, like the more you experienced like embodiment, how that supported you in your journey to overcome those.
Absolutely. So I will keep a long story short, and of course, feel free to ask me like extra bits, like when I've just given you the overview. So I started dieting at the age of 9, and I say overweight in quotes for the podcast. Like I wasn't overweight as a kid. I was very like active, and I had like a normal body size, but I copied everything that my mum did. And my mum was a dieter, and my mum's mum was a dieter, and everyone in my family was a dieter. And so I literally thought that you were born, and so therefore you just then diet and try to be skinny your whole life. So I learned how to try to control your body size from a very young age. And so I started messing around with my food from the age of 9. And then I was diagnosed with anorexia nervosa at the age of 13.
Oh my gosh.
Psychologists and therapists obviously always tried to find the root as to why perhaps that happened for me. From personal experience, obviously, and from a lot of self-reflection, I think it's a mixture of simply diet culture, number one, me being not anymore, but I was a perfectionist. I was very competitive. I had to be the best at everything. I was all or nothing, black or white. And I thought I got more love and attention and acceptance from my mum the smaller I was. And so everything kind of morphed into one, and then I just took it too far. And then now I've actually learned new research in anorexia, and that's actually genetic. And that resonates with me because when those that are prone to the anorexia gene, and this is Tabitha Farrar's incredible work, what happens when you get to a low body weight for your body type, because everyone's different, people can be underweight at any BMI. It's whatever your body wants to be. So when I was a certain suppressed body weight for my body type, I have the anorexia gene, and that was switched on, which describes and really resonates with me. When I became anorexic, I didn't need willpower to resist food anymore. It was like this switch had just flicked on, and I just wasn't hungry. I got no pleasure from food. Like the thought of eating was so scary to me. The fear of weight gain was even worse. And so we can dive into that more for sure, but that really resonates with me now. Fast forward, I mean, I was in the anorexia for about 3 years. Thankfully, the age I was, my mum was able to kind of take control, and because I was still a child technically, she was able to kind of put rules in place and consequences. And thankfully I had a love for horses at the time, and I still do, but I don't ride horses every day anymore. But I had my own horse then. I was very blessed to be in that position.
Mm-hmm.
And it was basically, if you don't eat this, we're selling the horse. If you don't go for medical weigh-ins, we're selling the horse. And so it was threatened behavior, and I hated it, and I hated eating, but it saved my life.
Yeah.
So I was new weight restored, if you like. So I say healed in quotes from anorexia, but only on this like surface level, only the physical body. I had weight gained, so I was not dangerously thin, and I wasn't going to die anymore due to low body fat. However, I didn't understand the mental side of that. So I had all the habitual wiring in place from all the restriction. And so I lived with an awful relationship with food, from the dieting, then the binging started to creep in. Like when I kind of recovered from anorexia around the age of like 18, it went back to the like what my mum used to do when I was 9, like the diet binge cycle. And when I was 19, I find myself falling into a very abusive relationship. Now, it happened very gradually. It's not just one day you're with the person and they hit you and then you're like, okay, cool, I'll just stay in this relationship. Like, it's very gradual. And I turned to food during that time. I call it the time I was in the cave, because I didn't have any friends. Like, this all happened gradually. I kept saying I didn't just do anything with them anymore. I didn't socialize. I didn't see my family. I didn't go to my sister's wedding. And so food was there for me though. And it didn't matter that I gained weight, because I literally wasn't allowed out in the world unless I was with him. And so because I was emotionally eating, because I was hating myself for emotionally eating, I therefore then started binge eating. The weight piled on. I still hadn't dealt with my fear of weight gain since the anorexia. I went to the doctors with him because I wasn't allowed to go anywhere alone. And I was diagnosed with binge eating disorder. When I left that relationship, which was 6 years later, so I would have been 24, I found a love for the gym, because that was like something that just I could do. And it was really for me, and it was helping me to express and feel all of my emotions that I had that was stored for 6 years in that relationship. The dieting behavior came back because I was kind of in the real world again, feeling like I needed to fit in and be liked and loved. And then because of the gym and the fitness that I hadn't had before, I all of a sudden had a 6-pack, and then everyone was looking up to me. And then I was asked to do like fitness modeling. And then a kind of a mixture of the starvation and the binging came together. And then I started purging to try and compensate the binges. So it was kind of like everything all rolled into one. I would starve myself all day, eat as little as possible, like do probably 5 hours of exercise every day. Then I'd binge in the evening, take shitloads of laxatives, like to the point where my poor body, I don't even know how she's okay. I used to try to make myself vomit. Thankfully, I physically couldn't do it, but it didn't stop me trying. So I'd just go down the laxative and over exercise route. And then that was me until the age of 30, which was only 5 years ago as we're recording this. And then I went to Egypt on holiday and met my now fiance, who's a Dutchman, in Egypt on holiday.
Oh, so romantic.
It is. And then I moved to the Netherlands 5 years ago, and I was still in my eating disorder, in the bulimia, and I couldn't hide from it anymore. I mean, I wasn't hiding from it. I knew what was going on, but everyone else was just complimenting my body the whole time and asking how I was doing it. And I was blatantly lying, because I didn't dare to tell them that actually I'm a bulimic and I'm doing all these things and I'm so unhealthy inside and so unhappy as well. Wouter, my fiance, he was into personal development and still is, and he introduced me to personal development. And then my new obsession became, because isn't it interesting, Emily, that we have like this anxiety that I believe is at the base of like all eating disorders and disordered behavior. It latches onto things. So over time, when I started my healing journey 5 years ago, it took itself away from the obsession with food and body, and then latched to like my business and personal development. And now I'm really getting to the root of it all. But I started my journey 5 years ago, hired my own coach, studied psychology, studied nutrition, studied spirituality, became certified, read shitloads of books, invested in programs, and learned the hard way, if you like. And here I am 5 years later, like loving myself. I didn't even understand what self-love was. If someone had said to me 5 years ago, what does self-love mean? Yeah. I would have either probably given a superficial answer such as, oh, it means you love the way you look, and it would have been that. But I just deeply, unconditionally love myself. And I teach other women how to remember, because it's not something we need to learn. It's something we're born with. We just forget, and we've got trauma blocking us from feeling that. And so I help women primarily love themselves. But of course, the food stuff is a symptom of the lack of that. So I work with women with anorexia, bulimia, binge eating disorder, the diet binge cycle, any form of disordered eating. I work with them and bring them back home to self-love and then a peaceful and loving relationship with food and their bodies.
Thank you for sharing all of that. My heart was just so moved hearing your own story, and I'm just grateful for you and your generosity to share that and offer that to all of us listening, because I know so many of my listeners will resonate with that and feel supported in that and feel seen in that and not alone in their own journey in that. A couple things I wanted to say from what you shared is beginning when you shared, your dieting started at like age 9. I shared my book, Radical Embodiment. My journey with starting to hate my body was age 8. So similar like ages, which is just interesting to me and feels like deeply like sad, but we're also trained, I think, right? We're seeking approval. We're seeking love. We're seeking acceptance. And I think from a lot of not only familial, what's happening familially within our own internal unit, but for me, it was more even what's happening societal and culturally that I'm seeing that all of this, of course, is unconscious, right? But like that I think will allow me to get more love and acceptance. And it's like, oh, fix this body, try and look this certain way from those sweet young ages. Well, I also resonated with when you shared, 5 years ago when you started the personal development journey. I don't know if you started to put your anxiety towards that, but it sounds like a little bit. And I resonated about 15 years ago, probably is when I really started to dive deeper into personal development and spirituality and personal growth. And for a few years, a handful of years, I identified as like a personal growth junkie because I was like, any book I could get, any program I could enroll in, I was like, I was in it, which is awesome. And I also think it's important to name because I do think it's a part of the journey. And especially when it's new to you or to dive in, then also realizing, okay, where is that underlying motivating behavior coming from, right? Is it coming from a place of really love and desiring to dive into being able to feel more acceptance? Or is it coming more from, oh, I need to fix myself. I'm wrong. I better fix myself. And fixing myself, the answer of that is in these books. So I'd love to ask you now, since you shared around how you really are in this place of just really loving your body and loving yourself fully. And I shared with Victoria as we were on video right now, when we got on, I was like, oh my, you just look so radiant. And what I mean by that, it's less of like how she's physically looking. It's a feel that I have energetically of just seeing her eyes, seeing her glow, like you have this beautiful radiant glow that I really believe comes from coming back home into that inherent love, which I also love how you said that, right? It's not, we have to learn it. It's always there. We just have these layers of conditioning and traumas that we need support in helping to release and uncover. But I'd love to ask you, what does self-love for you mean right now? Like, what does that feel like?
So self-love to me is, I love how you described it, Emily. It's like a glow from within. So you can see the glow physically from like an outside looking in, but it's also a glow that you feel from within. So to me, self-love feels like if you have like a loving relationship with your mum, like a big loving cuddle from your mum, it feels like a safe, sacred space within that's always got your back. It feels warm, it feels comforting, it feels friendly, but also it's unknown all at the same time. But it's just this, I think if I had to pick one word, it would be comforting.
Comforting. Yeah. I resonate with that. Yeah. And I feel like that comforting comes in the language of even coming home into ourselves, coming home into our body. And when you were speaking, even the sense of like our bodies are sanctuary in a way. And it is like our, instead of, especially with trauma response, right? The tendency is to pop out of our body because it's not safe. Our nervous system is sensing whatever scenario we're in is unsafe, right? With big T trauma and little T trauma. And I think this experience of learning to love ourselves more is actually inviting with support, which is essential, coming more and more like back into your body, reclaiming your body. And it's comforting, right? Because it's reclaiming your body as your home, as your nest, as your sanctuary. So
yeah, and embodiment for me, Emily, has played such a huge part in my journey, because exactly as you've said, so many times my body, my soul has like disassociated itself from my body, especially during the physical abuse in the relationship, like the rape, the beatings. It's like a protective mechanism, and it's very clever. I remember like just thinking back to one episode, like I remember it was almost like I was watching myself have this thing that was being done to me that was obviously horrific, but I wasn't in my body though. So I felt the pain, but also I didn't. It's like really hard to describe.
yeah.
And then of course with the anorexia, like way back when, and then every time I've ignored my hunger, every time I've binged to the point where I'm so full, I feel like I'm physically going to actually pop, like all the time. I want to use the word abuse my body, but at the same time, that doesn't feel right, because I was doing the best with what I could at the time with all the trauma, right? And so
it sounds like at that time, food was your reassurance, right? Something like you weren't connecting with your friends and family. You were just innocent. Again, another smart, supportive at the time coping strategy for your body of like, it sounds like there was some safety and soothing in that.
Absolutely. And to over time with support, like you said, that is such a key word. I could not have done this alone, especially the trauma work, to be able to be in my body. Number one, just a simple perception shift of not seeing your body as a billboard, not seeing your body as an object, not seeing your body as a sexual object for men. Because I heard this quote by Summer Inanen, she's a body image coach, and it resonated so much with me when she said, "You weren't born just to give men boners." And a lot of my life,
I love it because it's also there's some nice lightheartedness in that. Yeah.
Right. And it wasn't until I heard that as well, like my whole life, I say probably until I was early teens, I'd learned that women are sexualized by men. So therefore, again, in order to be loved and desired, because of the porn industry, everything, the whole conditioning, we need to look this way. So when I was able to be in my body and feel safe to be in my body, it started for me with the eating stuff. What does hunger even feel like to me? Like my actual body describing or letting me know that it's hungry. What does that feel like? What does it feel like when my body is satisfied? What does it feel like to actually receive pleasure, sexual pleasure, taste, the pleasure of the wind in your hair, like when you're going for a walk, to actually be in and experiencing that, other than almost being numb to everything. Like in sex, I would be like, I would put on a show, I'd be a performer. I wouldn't be in my body and experiencing and receiving. I'd be giving all the time, because that's also what I thought women were supposed to do. So I've gone on a little tangent here, but all in all,
great. Yeah.
all in all, isn't it? It's just about being in your body and experiencing the pleasure and the immense abundance of what life has to offer. Having your body just be an extension of you.
Yeah.
And that's damn hard.
It's not the easy work, right? Because you're not bypassing anything when you're really choosing to be in your body. You're really choosing every day, every moment, I think, to be with what is, to acknowledge what is, to feel what is. And it's a beautiful journey. It's rewarding. And I think it's a true journey. It's a pathway to, I think, our own authenticity of who we are as human beings. And I love that you mentioned pleasure and being with pleasure. And that's so important. I think that pleasure sometimes can feel like a dirty word, right? Because I think it's unfortunately so just juxtaposed with sexual pleasure, which sexual pleasure, yes, amazing, right? Let's experience that. And pleasure means so much more than just sexual pleasure and experiencing our sexuality. So I love the examples you gave of the pleasure of feeling the wind in your hair or like the sun on your skin, and even, or pleasure even from food, from something, eating something really delicious. And I found even in my own journey of disordered compulsive overeating, that experience, I was numb and I was using it to numb. And so I wasn't even receiving the pleasure from the food. I wasn't fully tasting the food. Right. And so then even from a more physiological perspective, right, there's not the same degree of satiation in that if you're not really receiving the pleasure, receiving the taste, receiving the abundance of that. And I think for us women, the more we can learn in a safe way to experience and feel pleasure for ourselves, not to try and give to anybody, not to try to prove to anybody, but just for us, the more we fill ourselves up, the more we come into a more comfortable experience in our body that can help us expand outward. So I'd love to ask you because do you call yourself a food freedom and body love coach? Is that the exact? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I am. Yeah.
So Victoria's the food. Yeah. So what does that mean? What are food freedom and body love?
So food freedom to me is not thinking about food obsessively all day, every day. I mean, I used to think what I was going to have for lunch when I was eating breakfast. And then I'd also at the same time be trying to restrict at the same time as I was obsessing about food. So I'm sure you can relate.
I know. I'm just like exhausted hearing that. I'm like, I know that exhaustive loop. Yeah.
So it's a mental aspect of like being free from the obsessive thoughts. It's also a physical aspect of like literally eating whatever it is you want, when you want, as much as you want, which sounds, I'm sure to your listeners, sounds so liberating and also very scary. And I get the scary part, but that's how I live. And my clients, that's how I live my life. I literally eat whatever I want, when I want. It's also being able to say yes or no thank you to your favorite foods, because you might perhaps be choosing to feel, let's say, for example, someone offers you a piece of chocolate cake and you like chocolate cake, but you have a meeting later, so you don't want to have the sugar dip. You can say no, but knowing that you can have 10 pieces of chocolate cake whenever the hell you want, because you're a grown-ass woman and it doesn't mean anything about you.
I love that. And being able to, I just love that so much. I'm like praising you, Victoria, in my head. And like, it's such a distinguishing, being able to have the choice of saying no, come from a place of really being clear of how it is you desire to feel, versus the chocolate cake is wrong and bad, and I shouldn't possibly have another 300 calories or this much sugar. It's so distinctly different. Yeah,
absolutely. And there's a great quote that I made up. I'm sure someone said it in a different way before, but allowance creates space for choice.
Allowance creates space for choice. 1000%. I believe that. Yeah. I think allowance, permission. Yes. Completely.
Permission, meaning the same thing, permission, right? And because people say, okay, so how can you create space for that choice of whether to have the cake or not? You first have to give yourself full permission and allowance without making it mean anything bad about you. And then the space comes to make a choice. Until you keep giving yourself allowance and permission, you will feel like a compulsion to either have a cake and then have 10 or have none at all. So when you feel like you haven't got a choice, that's inviting you to take a look at, okay, well, what's my motivation? What am I making this mean? And so food freedom is just, food eating is easy and it's pleasurable. Body love is bringing the word like love back into this. It's unconditional love for the vessel that you live in, for your body and for yourself. So they are obviously very intertwined. It's about being in your body, like we spoke about before. It's not seeing your body as a billboard or as a sexual object or something to be compared to, which is hard, but it's absolutely doable. It's about being free to be in your body and live and experience life and love yourself through it all. It can include body positivity, which is looking in the mirror and thinking, wow, I love the way I look physically. It absolutely can include that, but that's not a necessity to love your body.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for saying
when you have that depth of the body love, the superficial stuff doesn't matter even a tiny bit compared to what it does when people first come to me. Their whole self-worth is wrapped up in their body image.
Yep.
And so body love is just that, I mean, your body's going to change over time as well. I mean, as women, I mean, it's not funny, but I'm laughing because it's you have to laugh, right? But as women, we don't only have to be thin, but now it's not thin, it's big boobs, big bum, small waist, toned arms, and we have to stay young.
I know.
I
know. I'm like, yeah. Right. And then you think of like all the hormones that are shifting through a woman's life cycle, through a woman's monthly cycle, having babies, not having babies, the shifts our bodies go through. And yet there's this demand of like, you got to get your body back after baby. And it's like, you didn't lose your body changed and shifted and did an incredible thing. And yes, I believe in coming back into yourself, but yeah. So, and I appreciate how you distinguish too of body love doesn't necessarily mean, it can include, but it doesn't at all mean being able to look at yourself in the mirror and really like, loving those physical components. I believe that comes with time. I really do. The more that you really love yourself, but it's not a distinguishing factor of really being in love with this physical vessel that's going to be with you this entirety of this lifetime.
Exactly. And there's a difference between, because when you do progress on your journey to body love and self-love, it's like if you imagine you're in a relationship with a partner, with a sexual partner, but more than sex, like a husband, let's say, like a husband or a wife. You're in a relationship with a husband or a wife. Obviously, to get to the point of marriage, unless it's an arranged or forced marriage, like you're going hopefully to love and want to be with that person. Now, you can have a judgment towards that person's body and not make it mean anything about them and still feel the desire for them and still want to be with them. So if we can look at our bodies as the way we would look at a loving relationship based on unconditional love and acceptance, we can look in the mirror and perhaps notice a judgment that we have about ourselves, like, oh, I don't like the look of my cellulite, but that's okay because I love myself as a whole. It's what we make those things mean, which brings us obviously to weight gain and things. It's like with everything, it's what are we making it mean about us?
Totally. And I think that's, I work a lot with women and specifically releasing body shame. And I think when we start to make these things about our body's appearance, when it's the slippery slope is when we start making it mean something is wrong with us. Something is wrong with us, because it's when we start distinguishing as, oh, I'm wrong because I have cellulite, or I'm wrong or bad or not worthy because my stomach comes out over my jeans. I think that's when we can go down that shame slope. Yeah. So with that, I want to ask you, because especially when you shared with food freedom and being able to just like eat what you want when you want. And, maybe you choose not to have the chocolate cake before the meeting, but maybe later you have the 10 pieces or whatever. Yeah. That probably brings up a lot of like, yes, that sounds awesome. And like anxiety for people because of that fear of weight gain, of if I really allow myself to eat what I want, I'm going to gain weight. And like, that's really scary. So could you walk us through how we can navigate that fear of weight gain?
Absolutely. And it's such an important topic to talk about, as I was sharing with you off camera, because not many people talk about it. I mean, there's obviously some people, which is great, but for a few reasons. One, because some professionals in the food industry, like in the food freedom industry, haven't actually navigated their own fear of weight gain, so they don't know how to teach it. It's really scary. It involves like facing like the biggest fears. Like I remember, especially when I was anorexic, I'm not ashamed to say this, but I was at one point. I think I would rather if someone I knew died than me gain weight. I was so petrified, doesn't even cut it. Petrified of gaining weight. And so we can gain weight, but still be scared of weight gain because the fear is all in the mind. Right? I'm not saying it doesn't feel real. It's real to the person. Of course it is. But you can gain weight and still be petrified of weight gain. So in terms of making peace with like weight gain or potential weight gain, because people that start the food freedom journey, we don't all gain weight because our bodies have a set point too. And this is another conversation, but just to clarify a little bit, every single one of us has our own natural set point weight. It's like a bit of a range, and it's determined by genetics mainly and environment. Either way, we can't actually control our body size long term. Like Like one of my favorite mantras is, my body is none of my business. Taking care of myself is.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Right. And so when we get on board with that, like we can't actually control our body size anyway, and my body knows where it wants to be, we can eat whatever the hell we want when we want, like I do. This is my natural set point weight because my weight hasn't fluctuated for about 1.5 years now. And I eat completely intuitively. I also eat when I'm not hungry just because I want the cake. Why haven't I then kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, which is most people's fear? It's because my body is happy and thriving with this body fat percentage, whatever that is, because of course I don't weigh myself. I have no idea and I don't care. That's up to my body. She knows what she's doing. Some people sit at a higher set point range. Some people sit at a lower set point range. So weight gain won't keep coming and keep coming and keep coming in your food freedom journey, but it can definitely come. So the biggest thing that helps me and what I help my clients to navigate is, first of all, it's that word, what is it meaning? So what do we make weight gain mean? How would our life actually be different if we gained weight or lost weight? Because when we take the time to actually journal the answers to those questions, most of it comes down to, I would feel more confident to wear the bikini if I was smaller, or if I gain weight, then I wouldn't want to go out in the dating world. But all of that isn't true. And you can do all of the things. In fact, I challenge my clients. I say, give me a list of how your life would be different if you lost weight. And they give me a list and I'm looking at it and I'm like, we can literally get you to all of those feelings, because you're after a feeling, not the thing. They need that. We're always after a feeling as a human. You can feel those things in the body you have now or in a larger body. And then I challenge them to let me guide them to have that. And so when it comes down to the wire, it's also a great journal prompt is, I've gained weight and I'm no longer in an eating disorder. I've gained weight and I'm no longer like obsessing about every calorie and all of that. I've gained weight and I'm actually, because I've done the body image work, I'm confident to be having a sexual experience with my partner without worrying what I look like. So it's all about perception as well. Like once we change our perception, our reality changes. So I work with clients to change their beliefs and their perception about what weight gain means, get them to experience the feelings they've been chasing that they hope thinness will get them, because thinness isn't an innate human need. Love and acceptance are. We think we get love and acceptance via the pursuit of thinness. When we realize that that's actually a marketing strategy from the beauty culture and the diet industry, and actually being our full authentic selves, we meet the authentic people that we're supposed to be in relationships with. We don't need to be trying to control, which we can't anyway, our body size. Totally. I'll pause there because I still have so much to say, but
I love everything you're sharing. Yeah, it's so rich and so true. And I mean, even I love that mantra of my body is my business, taking care of myself is. And when we can help to kind of pull apart the ways that we are tending or caring for ourselves or choosing to move or choosing to eat, not from a place of trying to control and modify our body to be this certain way. And instead of, I really want to nourish myself. I really want to take good care of myself, or I'm noticing I'm in a more stressful period of my life. So I'm going to make choices that are going to support that. It feels so much better. There's more pleasure and enjoyment there. There's just more grace. What I find is with myself and with my clients as well, is they more naturally just tend to themselves in a more sustainable, nourishing way. And like, I know so many women, so many people who have lost the weight and gotten to their quote unquote ideal body size composition. And the negative voices sometimes are even louder, or they're still there, right? The insecurity, the I'm not enough, or I'm not worthy. Often the compulsiveness and like drive around food is even louder. And so I think none of that has to do with weight. We've just been trained from marketing that's like really sleek and really good, because I know in 2018 within the United States, so this was 4 years ago, this stat, but the net profit just within the United States for dieting culture industry was $72 billion, which is insane. So of course they're going to have the highest top people with marketing, right? And know how to market, sell to us. So we want to buy the thing, which is to make us think, yeah, I buy the diet tea, I do this thing, and then I'm going to receive more love and acceptance. But that's opposite. It doesn't come from those external lifeless things. Yeah.
It doesn't. And, there's a quote on my website, and I put it on my website purposely because people can either diet until they die. Like, seriously, if they don't change, they will be 70-year-olds counting fucking almonds and weighing out peanut butter, right? And still obsessing about their body. So you can diet until you die or heal your relationship with food. Both are hard and only one is worth it.
Totally.
And so to live in the flow of your body, and it also comes down to the point, the question, which is a very powerful question. Like, if people are listening to this and potentially really wanting to live in food freedom and body love, but of course they have the fear of the weight gain and all of that, what's more important to them? Continuing on the path that they're on, which is just going to either stay the same or get worse, never truly being able to just go on spontaneous pizza nights without even hating their bodies for it or binging because of it, or like all of the stuff that comes with that? Or is what's most important to them getting older gracefully and loving every moment that they can, and perhaps teaching their children how to just love and embrace? Because one other
be
question,
present.
Be present.
Because when that other stuff is in the field, it's sucking so much energy and life force that we're not actually able to be present and enjoy our lives, like you're saying.
Yeah. And when I gave up dieting and started my healing journey, I started my own business, and I now help women from all around the world, like earning more money than I ever thought would be possible, doing what I love, spreading the abundance that I have by helping more women and making free stuff. And when I stopped dieting, because I had the brain space, I wasn't body checking every 5 minutes. Like, dieting keeps us small, and I say that as a bit of a pun because it doesn't actually keep us small. We have to keep dieting to try and stay small physically, but more so it keeps us so small as women.
Yes, totally.
The more we keep continuing to diet, and the diet industry is profiting off our insecurities, we're helping our own oppression.
1000% agree with that. It is.
No more.
No more. No more.
Because
it's trying. I feel like too that the diet culture industry, I think we won't go into this because this is like a whole other conversation, but I think a big part of it is this idea of controlling women, keeping women small, not just physically, but exactly what we said in all areas. And I love that as you have found your own freedom and love for your body, how that creates an abundance and a ripple effect and impacting women everywhere. Because that's what it's all about, right? Is let's shift this narrative. Let's have this ripple impact, because we don't have to live in the constraints and the shackles of diet fixation, a fixation around our appearance. Yeah.
For the listeners listening, there's so much more available to you that you cannot even imagine, because you're so wrapped up in dieting and what your body looks like. Like, just wait and see what happens. Like, the amount of life transformations my clients have. I mean, yes, I've supported them, I've been a coach, but it just blows my mind and warms my heart. Like, the stories that they share with me, like a few, years after they've gave up dieting, like what comes into their life is just incredible.
Oh, I love hearing that. Yeah. So I'd love to just wrap up with asking you a couple more questions. So this, title of this podcast is Radical Embodiment. My book is Radical Embodiment. And so what would, if you have your number one main takeaway, be for somebody who's wanting to live a more radically embodied life, which to me means experiencing more freedom around food and true body love, which is what you're speaking to?
I would say, we've said this a few times, and there's a reason why we've said this a few times, and it's a practice, being in your body. So when you're making love, close your eyes more and be in the experience. And when you notice your mind wandering to, what do I look like from this angle, and what perhaps might he think, be in your body. And when you're eating, close your eyes, and the first few mouthfuls, close your eyes and taste and just connect to the incredible, I don't even want to call it a machine, the incredible phenomenon that is your body and all that it gives to you, that you get to experience that. And when you can feel that deep appreciation for your body, the acceptance comes so much easier, the love comes so much easier, because you cannot hate something that you deeply appreciate.
Yes.
And so being in and experiencing through, I would say.
Beautiful. Being in and experiencing through your body. Gorgeous. Thank you for that. Victoria, would love to know, where can people learn more about your work, find more about you?
Absolutely. I've got a few things going on. So I always have on my website, which is victoriakleinsman.com. I'm sure everything will obviously be linked. A free taste test. So if you just go on my website, and also it's linked on my Instagram, a free taste test. And it's actually a lot of value I give away. And so you can get the first 3 modules of my paid program. And that's like audios, worksheets, videos. There's a free private membership included in that. So go and check that out. I also have, at the beginning of November, a free 5-day body love binge group experience that I'm so excited about.
Awesome.
I'm offering a 5-day free experience, like in a group environment. We're going to have like coaching calls. There's going to be action steps, worksheets. And I'm so excited to give that for free, just for you to, everything's going to be based around food freedom and body love. And I have my own podcast, which Emily has been an amazing, incredible guest on. And can I share something that I really learned from our podcast?
Please. Yeah.
So when you said, when I was interviewing you, and I thought about this after, and I wish I'd shared it with you, you said you used to have lower back issues because you wouldn't allow your stomach to just be soft and breathe out. After that episode, I was really thinking about that, because I think without even realizing it unconsciously, I was doing the same like my whole entire life. And so your episode encouraged me to like explore like more breathing techniques and like making an effort to allow my stomach to be soft and round, and my lower back pain's gone.
Oh, Victoria, thank you for sharing. Oh, that makes me so happy to hear. I appreciate you sharing that.
So thank you, because even things like that and lower back pain, you just think, oh, my back's sore, like whatever, but it can be from diet culture and being ashamed to have a soft stomach as a woman. I mean, God forbid.
I always say that too. God forbid, as a woman, I have a stomach. That's literally the exact words that always come into my mouth when I think of that, right? I'm like, I mean, we have all of our internal organs, our womb, like there's so much. And yet, oh, right, it should be like concave.
Yes. And so the second I had done obviously a ton of this, I teach this work, but I didn't even realize I was doing it, because I do like to make things, and I encourage those that this resonates with to do the same, make things into a little game so it becomes like more lighthearted. So I would challenge myself after our episode to blow my stomach out and hold my hands on my, and rub the cute bloaty tummy. And so it was uncomfortable to start with, but I would purposely do that and send love to myself. So I just wanted to share that. It was, and that's
I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. The Body Love Binge is my podcast as well. And Instagram, Victoria Kleinsman Official, Facebook, Victoria Kleinsman.
Yes, definitely go check out, listen to Victoria's podcast. She's got a plethora of episodes and wisdom. And then we can find out the taste test that's freebie on her website, which will be linked. And then the upcoming 5-day coaching, will that also be on your website so people can sign up?
Yes, that's under, I think it's called the 5-day Body Love Binge on my website too.
Amazing. And there'll be plenty of time, since that starts beginning of November, for people to sign up and block off time on their schedules to take advantage of that. That's an incredible offer. So
I'm so excited for it.
Amazing. Amazing. Victoria, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your wisdom, for sharing the depth of your own personal journey. I truly believe it is through more of us sharing our own, more shameful moments, darker moments, that helps support and liberate and heal others, right? I think that shame feeds from being internalized, feeds from being in darkness. And the more we can start to talk in safe containers and places about some of these own inner going ons or disordered ways of eating or viewing food in our body, the more I feel that helps others, one, realize they're not so alone in it, and also feel a little bit safer to open up and share and realize it doesn't have to be that way, that there is another way. Yeah.
Our story can be the keys to unlock others' chains, right?
Yes.
We're not in this alone. So as much as you think you're effed up around food, you're not. Like, I have so many funny stories to share, and just reach out to me, reach out to Emily, reach out to anyone who you trust. Like you said, shame cannot survive if it's brought into the light, and bringing it into the light is simply sharing it with someone who you trust to hold that space. And then from that, magic happens. So thank you for having me on, Emily.
I want to end with your quote of allowance creates space for choice. So I feel like that's a beautiful takeaway and ending point. So thank you again, Victoria. Thank you everyone for listening and tuning in. And all of Victoria's links will be on the podcast show notes, so you can find those easily. All right. Take care.
Much love. Bye-bye.